Hi, this is Joan Hall, aka Joan the Choir Lady, and this video is in response to a question that I got from one of my wonderful choirparts.com customers. All my customers are wonderful. So this particular customer wants to teach the song More Abundantly by Ricky Dillard to her choir. And she already bought the practice parts from choirparts.com. And she emailed me asking for some tips about teaching and directing the vamp on that song. The vamp is the final repeating section. And the question she asked was, on that part of the song, is it really about directing, or does the choir have to memorize it? So we're going to look at the vamp on More Abundantly, look at what's going on musically, and talk about the role that directing plays in it and the role that memorization plays in it. So first, let's look at the song. So that vamp on More Abundantly by Ricky Dillard is an example of an arpeggio. An arpeggio is when you take a chord and break it up into its individual notes and play it or sing it one note at a time to make up that chord. That arpeggio first happens during the verse of the song. It's in A flat. My piano is a little bit out of tune. Early in the song, soprano sing, "But I come to many broken hearted to give your heart a song." Altos, song. Tenors, song. That's an arpeggiated chord. It's an A flat minor seventh chord. Song, song, song. So that happens early on, and then during the vamp, they play that arpeggio over and over and over, and as we know, it goes very, very fast. It bounces back and forth between the sopranos, the altos, the tenors, and the altos again. Joy, 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 and then faster. Joy, 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 joy. So that's the part that we're talking about, and let's think about what is the role that the director plays and what is the role that the choir plays in making that part work. When you're directing the vamp on this song, the part where they're singing the arpeggio more slowly, joy, 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 at that point, you can signal them to tell them when to sing, and they would be like watching your signal to know when to sing their part. Joy, joy, joy. But when you get to the fast part, joy, 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 at that point it would be going too fast for the choir to be waiting for your signal to know when to sing. So at that point, the choir has to have their part memorized. So in rehearsal, in teaching it, you want to spend some time on this section. You want to drill the singers until they have the rhythm of their part drilled into their brains. Each section has a particular rhythm that they're singing. If you count during that part, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The soprano pattern is they are singing on beat 1. So, joy, 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 joy. And repeat that with them and practice them on it until they've got that part and they know it's theirs, and they know that whatever else happens, they're singing on beat 1, and that's the only beat they sing on. The altos are singing on beat 2 and beat 4. Joy, 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 joy. So that's the part that they have to repeat. Go over it with them. until they're locked in on it. The tenors, they sing on beat 3 only. Joy, 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 and repeat that with them until they've got that locked in. So you want to go over each part separately with each section, and also go over it with all of them together. Do both. I would recommend that you drill the sections individually on their parts first and then practice with them together. But doing both is important because they need to learn their own part in isolation and also learn how to stay on their part while they're hearing everybody else's as well, to hear how they fit together. And just practice, practice, practice. So when you get to the performance, your directing on that fast part is not to tell the choir when to sing their note. They need to have memorized when it's time for them to sing their note. What your directing does in that section is giving everybody a focal point that they can look at to help keep everybody synchronized, keep everybody at the right speed together so that nothing starts lagging. It's kind of similar to what classical music conductors do. A big part of what they do is establishing the beat. The main thing they do when they direct is give the beat pattern so everybody stays on time. So in that part of More Abundantly, that's what the director is doing, is just keeping everybody synced up, not telling them when to sing their note, because they need to already know when to sing their note. This is the directing technique that I find to work really well on More Abundantly. And that is to signal the sopranos and the tenors with one hand and signal the altos with the other hand. So if, for example, you have the sopranos on this side and the altos on that side and the tenors in the center, then you would be going soprano, then alto, then tenor, then alto. And this works really well as far as being able to keep your hand movements going with the speed of the song. Joy, 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 joy. And when it gets fast, joy, 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 joy. You can get to everybody. Your hands don't have to make any really fast movements because you're alternating between hands. This is the directing technique that I find the most workable for directing that part of that song. So I'm jumping in during editing to mention that the conducting that you do on this song is something that you might need to practice on your own before you get to rehearsal. Sometimes a director does have to practice their hand motions, when they're going to signal the choir, when they're going to signal the instruments, how far in advance they're going to signal certain things. There are a lot of things that we do with our hands that we do need to practice sometimes before we get to rehearsal. Practicing conducting was something that I did a lot when I was getting started with directing. While other teenage girls were singing into a hairbrush, I was directing my records. And even now, if there's a song where there's a passage where I have a lot of stuff that I have to handle at once, I will practice. So that is something that you have to do sometimes. So those gestures, practice them, make sure you've got them down before you get before the choir. So in answer to the question, is it directing or is it memorization? For that particular song, both directing and memorization come into play, but it's mainly memorization. The choir has got to have it down for themselves. There are some songs where the choir leans very heavily on the director. There are some songs where the choir leans very heavily on the lead singer. But this is one where the choir has to have it for themselves, and the director is kind of a guide. And just a reminder, something that can really help is getting practice parts for More Abundantly by Ricky Dillard on choirparts.com. I'll put a link down in the description to the product page where you can get the soprano part, the alto part, the tenor part, so your choir singers can listen to those. Joy, 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 joy. This is a song that does take some rehearsal time if the choir is learning it for the first time, but once they get it in there, it's there to stay. Anybody else, if you have a question about a particular song, want some tips about directing it, teaching it, anything like that, email me. Leave a comment here, whatever you want to do. I would love to help out in any way that I can. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Take care, God bless, and keep on singing. Oh, and one more thing. My customer, Shayla, actually asked me about 2 songs. So I made a video about one, and there'll be a video coming about the other one. It's the same things going on with arpeggiated chords and things like that, but it's a song that is more complex than More Abundantly. So if you want to see that, find out what the other song is, get some tips on that one. Keep watching this channel. Maybe subscribe to the channel. Maybe turn on the notifications so you can see the other video when it drops. All right, see you soon.